Hey folks, welcome back to Project 40. Recently, I took my RCF to the Nürburgring. We're about to do it, folks. Come on, let's go. And I did that for two reasons. The first one is to finally take my own car around the Nürburgring, and it was absolutely everything I was hoping it would be. It was just awesome. I've loved all sort of the feedback and the comments and the likes from everybody on the video, and if you haven't watched it, I'll put a link in the description below. But the second reason was to find out how I would change the RCF. And that's the focus for today's episode. We're going to be talking about the mods that I could do, we're going to talk about the prices and the end result of what those mods would give us. And you can tell I've been thinking about this. I've actually used pen and paper. That's right, pen on dead tree to start thinking about what sort of mods. And I've kind of broken them down into sort of 5 categories. Sort of the braking system, wheels and tyres, the exhaust, coilovers, that sort of thing. So when starting your modifications, I think it's always a really good idea to start with your braking system. There's no point adding additional power unless you've got the ability to stop it. So, and let's not forget, the default braking system, the RCF, is really, really good because you've got 380mm discs at the front with 6-pot calipers and 340mm discs at the back with 4-pot calipers. And they're slotted, they are very, very good in my opinion. Now, where they start to give up a little bit is on track. Specifically, I think the pads are a little bit under-spec'd in my opinion, particularly for, I mean, the Nürburgring isn't really a brake-heavy track, but if you go to another track that is a little bit more intense, a little bit more twisty than the Nürburgring, it would really start to show up. So if I was keeping a sort of OEM Plus setup, I would stick with the disc and just maybe get some EBC Red Stuff pads. But there is one problem with these discs, and it's kind of a microcosm of the wider RCF. They're heavy. The fronts are 14 kilograms each, so 28 kilograms at the front, and the rears are 10 kilograms each, so 20 at the back. So that's quite a lot of weight for your braking system. And so I've been looking at some splits, some two-piece rotors, two-piece discs, and they're a lot lighter. So in comparison, you've got the fronts are 10.28 kilograms. So essentially the weight of the rear discs. And the rears are 7.7 kilograms. And if you total that all up, it basically equates to a 28.2 kilogram saving on unsprung mass, and that's just the discs. Continuing on with the next mod I'm thinking about, it's these wheels. I like the design, but like the brakes, they are very heavy. So the fronts are 23 kilograms and the rears are 25. Now that's not bad for an OEM alloy wheel, but I think we can do a little bit better. And I've been looking at some other wheels. I think they're called Romac Venoms, and they are so much lighter. They're about 11.24 kilograms each. And that equates to 44 kilograms in total versus the 96 kilograms of the stock wheel. So that is an absolutely huge saving because in total, I think that's around sort of 51 kilograms saved just on the wheels alone. So you're starting to make, I think, a real difference in something called unsprung mass. And that means that your car is going to feel a lot faster just by reducing the weight on each corner. And that means it'll be faster in a straight line, but also through the twisties. Now, coming up third on the list, and what I think is probably the first mod that anyone makes on any of their cars, is the exhaust system. Now, the stock exhaust is best put as subtle, diplomatic, very quiet, muted even, considering the sort of 464 brake horsepower that this car has on tap. This exhaust does not like to shout about it. Even at full chat on the Nürburgring, it was still rather civilized, which, don't get me wrong, is amazing day to day because I can start up this car sort of day, night, whatever it is. If it's early in the morning, I'm not stressing about my neighbors. That said, it is a little bit dull. And so one of the things I've been looking at is getting a new exhaust, and there's a few options. Of course, I could just get a custom one set up, but I'd like to get a valve set up. That way I can be sort of naughty when I want to be, but quiet as a mouse when I need to be. So there's a few options from Army Tricks and GT House that sound absolutely epic. And those are the ones I'm sort of considering. Oh, And there might be a bit of a weight saving, not too much. I think you can get a like titanium exhaust and stuff, but honestly, I don't think titanium's a good metal to make an exhaust system out of. Stainless steel is much more sort of heat tolerant than titanium is. So it's also cheaper, so that's useful. Coming up at number 5, coilovers. Now, as I've talked before, the stock suspension in the RCF is just at the titty edge of being uncomfortable. Any stiffer, and I think it would be very, very painful to own day to day. And we know certainly when Dad Cars went around in this car, he found it way too uncomfortable. It's just at the cusp for me. But a new set of coilovers could easily fix that problem, because it's going to allow us to just dial in the damping that we need day to day, and then when we get on track we can increase the harshness, and that way we can have the on-track performance we need without compromising our spines, which is probably a good thing considering my age. There's also one added benefit in that the coilovers will probably be lighter than the stock suspension. I couldn't find any details on how heavy the stock suspension is, but my gut is telling me everything stock tends to be heavier. From all the research I'm finding on other parts, they tend to be lighter than stock. So we could probably save some weight there as well. But Tom, I hear you cry, nothing on this list so far is touching the engine. What about the performance side of the RCF? What can you be doing there? And that is a bit of a question mark, because most of the time putting in a different air filter doesn't really lock that performance. You need to be able to get things like, I don't know, a supercharger, more aggressive cams, or different headers. And the problem I'm finding with the RCF is because Lexus, let's face it, is a niche brand in the UK, they don't tend to sell many cars here at all, which I think is a crime. And if you've never had a Lexus, go out and buy one, or at least test drive one. Because even their sort of, you know, standard rate cars I think are great, but that's just me. The problem is that there isn't much in the aftermarket. And I think if we were in the US, I think we'd have some different problems, but we wouldn't have any issues getting aftermarket parts. I know that there is a supplier called PPE that can get me replacement headers. The problem is that they delete, I think, both the primary and secondary cats, and so you need to have those cats sort of coded out. And I don't know who can do that here in the UK. It's something I'm still investigating, and I know that the stock cats on the V8 in the RCF are very restrictive. So I think we can do something here. The problem is I just don't know how I'm going to do it yet, because I think the PPE headers do unlock about sort of 10, 15, 25 brake horsepower, something in that region. And I think in combination with the exhaust system, whack some sports cats on here, delete the secondary cats, we might be able to get something closer to 40 brake horsepower, which would get this close to 500 brake horsepower as a naturally aspirated V8. Combined with the weight savings, I think would really sort of lift the performance of this car. But it does get me to a wider question, is that what are all of these mods going to get me? I've been calculating all of the mods. I've been walking you through sort of the top 5 mods I've been looking at, but the real interesting thing is, what is that going to give me performance-wise, and how much is it going to cost? So the total sort of weight savings I've calculated for the wheels, the brakes, the exhaust system, that is around 70 kilograms, which is quite a lot. The problem is the cost of that. So the wheels are the cheapest. 4 of those wheels, 740 quid all in. That is a bargain, although it doesn't kind of include tyres. And I think they're a little bit, I think we can get 19, so we might be able to swap the tyres across. So I'm not counting that in the cost. Next, the 2-piece rotors. Hot damn. With brake pads, it's £2,536 and 57 pence for 2-piece rotors front and rear. Ouch. But that's not the big one. You know, I was talking about that nice exhaust system, that valved exhaust system. Now I'm pricing this on the Army Tricks one. I didn't grab prices for the GT House one. That exhaust system is £5,148 plus fitting, which would bring us to a total of £8,444 and 57 pence for a total weight saving of 70 kilograms. Now, I would get a better car for that. Don't get me wrong. It would go faster, it would sound better, it would perform better on track. But that's a lot of money. That's nearly £9,000 if we round up badly. whatever, nearly, let's say £8,500. That's a lot of money. And honestly, I don't know if it's worth it, because as soon as I put that money on the car, I'm never going to see it again. It's not going to improve the retail value of this car. And whilst I'm not looking at selling this car anytime soon, you have to have that sort of in the back of your mind, and that £8,000 would disappear and you'd never see that again, because just people don't pay extra for mods. It's very, very rare. In fact, a modified car is going to be worth less. A dealer won't be interested, and you're going to have to find someone that is very interested in those mods, that wants to pay the money. And so it becomes a problem to sell them. So that's a bit of a pickle. And none of that is factoring in the sort of PPE headers. That's, say, another sort of £4,000 without fitting. So the problem about owning niche vehicles is that there isn't enough of them around for local suppliers, and so you have to import everything, which just drives up the cost. It's crazy. And so that's where I am. These are things I'd like to do, but I don't know if it's worth doing. What do you think? Should I modify this car? Should I spend that money? Should I sort of split the difference and maybe get the exhaust but not the brakes? I don't know. That's where I want your help. Let me know what you think I should do with this car. Should I modify it, or should I keep it stock? Should I just enjoy it for another sort of 6 months of whilst I've got that Lexus warranty and then modify it? Or should I just, you know, go balls to the wall and spend nearly £9,000 modifying this car? Let me know in the comments. Love to hear your opinion. And with that, I think we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that, I'll catch you down the road.